Protecting every life. The push for Congress to outlaw abortion based on the gender of the unborn child. Major earthquake. Japanese search and rescue crews look for victims in collapsed homes. Wounded warriors. Veterans take center stage at the White House today. And 5 hours in Greece. The Pope's packed agenda for Saturday's day trip. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, April 14th, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Are American parents aborting babies because of the sex of the unborn child? A congressional hearing investigates that issue today. Jason Calvi joins us from Capitol Hill with more. Jason?
Brian, it's called selective abortion, and today a House Judiciary Subcommittee hosted a hearing on this explosive topic. They're talking about a law that would ban abortions based on the sex or the race of the unborn child.
It's a global problem. We're missing 160 million girls at least.
Researcher Anna Higgins blames that on sex-selective abortion. Her new paper claims it's not just happening in places like China, but in the United States.
Especially within immigrant populations in the United States, specifically Korean, Chinese, and Indian, you see particularly in second and third births, an extremely skewed ratio in the United States of boys in favor of boys over girls.
Arizona Representative Trent Franks sponsors the bill to ban abortions due to the sex or race of the unborn baby.
Some little girls are discriminated against and killed before they're born simply because they're little girls instead of little boys. You know, I have a little 7-year-old girl, and I just, the concept of that just absolutely guts me.
Members of this House Judiciary Subcommittee are hearing testimony about it today.
Planned Parenthood has 79% of their surgical abortion facilities within a 2-mile walking radius of a Black or Latino neighborhood.
The House voted on this bill back in 2012. It failed, with only 20 Democrats joining with all but 7 Republicans.
You wouldn't find such a division along party lines if we were talking about discriminatory employment practices for women.
But California Representative Judy Chu is opposed to the bill.
It criminalizes doctors for doing something that is really impossible to do, which is to determine what is in a woman's mind.
The bill does punish the doctor as well as anyone who forces or transports a mother to have an abortion based on the sex or the race of the unborn child. The sponsor of the bill tells me he's hopeful it will get a vote this year, but still there's no word. And Brian, there are 8 states across the country that ban sex-selective abortions.
Jason Calvi at the U.S. Capitol. Thank you, Jason. In a rare move, Missouri lawmakers vote to summon a regional Planned Parenthood CEO. Mary Kogut must explain why she has not complied with an order demanding documentation on the handling of aborted baby parts. A Missouri Senate committee is investigating Planned Parenthood after undercover videos alleged it's complicit in the illegal sales of infant organs. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A powerful earthquake knocks over houses in southern Japan, killing at least 2 people. Police say more victims may be trapped beneath the rubble. Nearly 4 dozen people are being treated at a Red Cross hospital, including 5 with serious injuries. The 6.5 magnitude quake struck around 9:30 p.m. local time. Police say there are reports of collapsed homes and buildings and people possibly trapped inside. The shaking was most severe in the town of Mishiki. That's about 800 miles southwest of Tokyo. One person there says some houses and walls collapsed in his neighborhood and the water supply has been cut off. The CDC confirms the Zika virus does cause microcephaly and other birth defects. It's the first time a mosquito bite has been found to cause congenital birth defects. CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden called the news a turning point in the Zika outbreak. Priests for Life issued a statement saying, "We call upon governments and medical professionals to continue to develop appropriate treatments and interventions, but in no way does this justify recourse to abortion." Giving back, we hear those words a lot, but they mean very little without some action behind them. Lauren Ashburn is at the White House tonight, where there was a good deal of action today. Lauren?
Brian, a beautiful spring day for a bike ride here in Washington. Active duty military personnel and veterans took a spin on a not so well traveled bike path for the annual Wounded Warrior Ride. And with that, cyclists put the pedal to the metal around a track on the South Lawn. 40 active duty and 25 veterans wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan came to help raise awareness and support for their fellow soldiers and sailors who are battling physical and psychological damages of war.
Part of this great movement is to help each other, for all of us to see each other get across that finish line. And that's how America's supposed to work. That's how our military works.
The Wounded Warrior Project was founded in 2003 and has raised hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. Since then, they've welcomed other organizations to help put together events like this one to help America's heroes.
We're all in this together, and any opportunity that we have to share that is important. And for the president to come out and show his continued support, and the vice president and the secretary, I can't say enough about it.
Hundreds of family, friends, and fellow soldiers cheered on the racers.
It means a lot. It means because President being who he is, he can kind of get the word out on what's going on with our veterans and the multiple organizations that are out there for veterans.
President Obama says the sight of wounded warriors riding bicycles serves as a reminder that service doesn't end when they take off the uniform. Mr. Obama said giving back is in their DNA. Brian, it wasn't easy to talk to the cyclists at the event, but when I ran into them outside of the White House gates, they said it was thrilling to be here. Brian.
Thank you, Lauren Ashburn at the White House. Men of courage. Donald Trump's campaign manager will not be prosecuted for battery. Prosecutors conclude there isn't enough evidence to convict Corey Lewandowski. A video recording seems to show him grabbing reporter Michelle Fields by the arm as she tried to ask Trump a question on March 8th. Fields later tweeted a photograph of her bruised forearm and said she had been yanked backward. Lewandowski denied grabbing her, and Trump stood by him, accusing Fields of exaggerating and changing her story. She says she is disappointed the prosecutor isn't pursuing the charge. Democrats Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders debate for the first time in more than a month. Tonight's CNN debate is in Brooklyn ahead of Tuesday's primary. It comes as the two candidates question each other's qualifications to be president of the United States. Pope Francis isn't likely to meet with Senator Bernie Sanders, who is visiting the Holy See this weekend. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi says it's not on the Pope's schedule. Sanders will attend a conference organized by the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences and the Vatican. The Democratic Socialist says he will denounce the idolatry of money. Sanders had voiced hope that he would be able to meet with the Pope. The Holy Father makes a quick weekend trip to a Greek island at the center of Europe's migration crisis. Mary Shovlain, our Rome producer, joining us now. Mary, the Pope will spend about 5 hours in Lesbos. Give us a snapshot of his packed schedule, if you would.
Good evening, Brian. That's right. It's 5 hours, but he's going to pack a lot in. He's going to land around 10:30 a.m. local time. He'll be greeted by the Prime Minister of Greece and then joined by his Orthodox brethren. From there, he and the Orthodox church leaders will head to a nearby refugee camp where they're going to greet 250 of them each personally. All three church leaders then speak in a courtyard. They're going to sign a joint declaration. We don't know the contents of that declaration yet. And then they're going to stay and they're going to have lunch with these asylum seekers. So it'll be a very special moment for them. After that, they're going to head to the port where so many lives have been lost, so many of those empty boats that have come in. They're going to have a moment of silent prayer and cast laurel wreaths into the sea to remember the victims of migration.
What does the Vatican hope to accomplish? I mean, jumping basically into this migration firestorm in Europe.
Exactly. Father Lombardi, in briefing journalists today, underlined that this is a purely humanitarian and religious trip. Pope Francis yesterday during the general audience said, I want to go just to be near them, to be with them in their plight, to show solidarity with them. So nothing political. But it does come at a time when the European Union has struck a deal with Turkey to ship some of these refugees back to where they came from. So in a sense, it's not political, but the timing of this is certainly interesting.
Mary Shovlain, our producer in Rome. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Microsoft sues the U.S. government today over privacy rights. That tech giant challenges a decades-old federal law. It allows authorities to examine customer emails or online files without the person's knowledge. Microsoft claims the law violates constitutional rights to free speech and protection against unreasonable searches. South Carolina lawmakers consider a bill requiring people to use public restrooms based on their sex at birth. That bill's sponsor, State Senator Lee Bright, says he's had enough of tolerance for people who want to change their gender. Bright's proposal is part of a backlash by lawmakers across the South. They're opposed to opening public restrooms to those who identify with the opposite sex. Former Beatle Ringo Starr joins rocker Bruce Springsteen in canceling concerts in North Carolina. They're protesting the state's so-called bathroom bill. They claim it's discriminatory. Supporters say the law protects privacy. Dr. Greg Wallace, a law professor at Campbell University, is joining us by Skype from Raleigh, North Carolina. Dr. Wallace, in a recent article, you wrote that there's a misplaced confidence that this law will be struck down. Are you confident it can be upheld?
I think it will. I don't think it's going to be the slam dunk unconstitutional law that its opponents claim it's going to be.
How do you see it comparing with other non-discrimination laws that have held up?
Well, if you look at the language of both the employment discrimination and public accommodations provisions of North Carolina's House Bill 2, you'll find that they are in the mainstream of non-discrimination laws nationwide. For example, the part of the House Bill 2 prohibits discrimination in public accommodations based on race, color, religion, national origin, and biological sex. This is actually slightly broader than the federal public accommodations law that was passed as part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So I think this law stands pretty much in the mainstream of non-discrimination laws, even though it doesn't include sexual orientation or gender identity.
You know, it's been nicknamed the bathroom law. Everybody wants privacy going to the bathroom. So this is really about privacy. Is there a way to protect the privacy of people on both sides of this issue?
I think there is. The law actually provides for an accommodation for transgendered persons in the form of either single occupancy bathrooms or controlled use bathrooms. In other words, the state facilities such as public schools and state agencies are free to create these kinds of single-use bathrooms if so requested. And I think that's an accommodation that balances the privacy interests of everybody involved. You know, non-transgender persons have privacy concerns as well when you allow transgendered persons who have a different physical appearance coming in, and these non-transgendered persons are going to have to disrobe, shower, perform bodily functions in sight of someone who has different anatomy than they do.
That's pretty obvious to all of us. Dr. Greg Wallace, law professor at Campbell University, thanks for joining us by Skype from Raleigh.
Thank you.
Coming up, people around the world mark the second anniversary of the abduction of Nigerian schoolgirls and understanding the power of religion as we take a closer look at the story of God. Pope Francis helped celebrate 400 years since the transformation of Rome's Pontifical Scots College, the seminary for Scotland's future priests. Addressing staff and seminarians, Francis says, "In this Jubilee of Mercy, I pray that the Lord may grant you the courage and grace to be faithful to His will by being dedicated to prayer, by loving Jesus, especially in the Holy Eucharist, and by entrusting yourselves to the care of Mary, our Mother." Thank you for joining us this Thursday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Police in South Carolina make an arrest in connection with a missing priest from the Diocese of St. Augustine, Florida. 28-year-old Stephen Murray was stopped in Aiken, South Carolina last night. He was driving a car that belonged to Father Rene Robert. Murray is charged with aggravated fleeing and attempting to elude police. He's being questioned as a person of interest in Father Robert's disappearance. The 71-year-old priest has not been seen since Sunday. Today marks 2 years since hundreds of Nigerian schoolgirls were kidnapped by the terrorist group Boko Haram. New video shows at least some of them were alive as recently as December. Wyatt Goolsby is here with that story.
Yeah, Brian, the Nigerian governor of Borno State, where the girls were abducted, says he believes the girls are alive and still in the hands of the terrorists. While he couldn't comment on a newly released video of the girls, he is praying for their safe return.
It's being called the Proof of Life video. CNN producer Stephanie Busari and photojournalist Sebastian Nopes obtained the video from a person close to ongoing negotiations in an attempt to have them released. It shows 15 girls with only their faces revealed. A voice asks each girl, "What is your name?" Is that the name your parents recognize? Where were you taken from? The video is met with a variety of emotions in Nigeria. Some cry because it gives them a glimmer of hope. Others, like this woman, cry because she has not yet seen her daughter. It's the same tearful reaction on Capitol Hill from one of the abducted girls who managed to escape captivity.
I just wish I can talk to them. I just wish they can hear me. I just wish I can tell them how much we miss them. And I just wanted to tell the world today that let's not give up. Let's not forget about these girls. Let's keep praying for them.
Sa, who goes by that name for her protection, is one of 10 girls who are now living in the United States, but more than 200 are still being held. 2 years ago, extremists seized 276 girls from science class at this school in Chibok. Since then, Nigerians have been campaigning using the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. Emmanuel Ogebe is an international human rights lawyer who is helping Sa and others get an education in the U.S. He says the girls have leaned on their faith.
One of the girls said to me yesterday that, it's only God who can bring these girls back. And I said to her, yes, God will bring them back. God can bring them back. But we hope that He will stir people's hearts to be able to be the hands and feet of Christ in engaging to bring them back.
Hundreds of Nigerians took to the streets today in the country's main cities, demanding the safe return of the girls. The recent video is prompting to put more pressure on the government to rescue the girls. Brian.
Thank you, Wyatt. We continue to pray. The church in Poland celebrates 1,050 years of Christianization today. The homeland of St. John Paul II plans ceremonies stressing Poland's Catholic identity. Now, bishops there are tying the anniversary to an initiative for a total ban on abortion. They say in a statement, in this Jubilee year of Poland's baptism, we urge all people of goodwill, believers and non-believers, to take action to ensure full legal protection of unborn lives. Joining us by Skype from Poland, Dr. Johanna Banaszuk, Vice President of Ordo Juris Institute for Legal Culture. Dr. Banaszuk, if you could explain what the laws in Poland are now regarding governing abortion.
We have 3 cases in which abortion can be performed. So the first case is when the pregnancy poses a threat to the life or health of the woman. The second condition is when there is a possibility that pregnancy is a result of an unlawful act. And the third condition, when the prenatal examinations indicate that there is high probability of a severe defect of the fetus or incurable illness.
There's an initiative to adopt a total ban supported by Catholic bishops. Is the political environment right for that? Do you think this will happen?
I really do hope that after we collect the signatures and after we propose this legislation to the parliament will be able to deal the best just to pass this bill to protect and to ensure the equal legal protection for the children before and after birth.
Dr. Johanna Banaszuk, thank you so much for joining us from Poland. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, the story of God. A National Geographic special seeks to show how our beliefs connect us. And Bible history, why some researchers believe key texts may be even older than we thought. Be docile to the Holy Spirit. Don't resist. That message in the homily of Pope Francis today at Mass in his residence of Casa Santa Marta at the Vatican. Francis warns against those who resist the Spirit with so-called fidelity to the law and invites all of us to pray for the grace of the docility to the Spirit. Thanks for joining us this Thursday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. A new National Geographic series explores how different religions seek God. It's called The Story of God with Morgan Freeman. Tonight, Catherine Szeltner shows how encountering other religions could help deepen a Catholic's own faith.
The hope for life beyond death seems to be an almost universal instinct.
In a global quest, actor Morgan Freeman sets out to explore questions all religions and cultures ask, like, what am I doing here? And what happens after I die?
The ideas that people now have about rebirth and resurrection all started here in Saqqara.
One producer behind the series says the idea was born after a visit to a mosque. Morgan Freeman was surprised to see mosaics of Jesus on the walls.
Their guide at the time said, well, no, these stories are part of Islamic tradition too, because Jesus is a prophet in Islam.
The show's mission is to show the links between faiths.
We're very aware of divisions, right? Politically, religiously, socially. It's a time when divisions between us are being highlighted. People are finding that they have more in common with other faith systems than they thought they had.
Here's one example of something in common: prayer beads. Buddhists use prayer beads called a mala, very similar to how Catholics pray, using rosary beads.
Father John Crossan leads the U.S. Bishop's Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs Department. He shares an example of someone growing deeper in faith after dialogue with others.
She became more Catholic because she had Muslim friends in the dorm, and they did the 5 times a day the prayers, and then she had to ask herself, well, they're really committed. Why am I not so committed?
Father Crossan says interreligious engagement challenges us to be better. But first, it's important to have a solid foundation.
It's very important that you have a point of view. Some say, well, you just take a little of this and a little of that. Well, that doesn't work. You have to know who you are.
Catherine Szeltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. Archeologists discover a massive stone slab covering the tomb of one of the first Catholic priests in Mexico. The grave is sunk into the floor of what appears to be an Aztec temple. The slab uncovered recently at the site of the first cathedral of Mexico City, built in 1524. It is just yards from the current cathedral, which replaced it in the 1620s. This discovery shows the Spanish likely built the first cathedral on the Aztec temple foundation. Graphologists in Israel find new evidence suggesting people living more than 2,600 years ago were more literate than first thought. Using handwriting analysis technology, a Tel Aviv University team is studying ancient Hebrew inscriptions. It's a painstaking process, but yielding exciting new possibilities.
We're dealing with very ancient and very deteriorated texts. So, for example, if you look at one of the letters, then you can hardly see the letter itself. And as a first step, you need to reconstruct this letter, and then, only then, the whole game of identifying or analyzing different authors begin.
The research findings lead some scholars to believe that key biblical texts may have been composed a century earlier than thought. The Vatican hosts a performance of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Vatican Radio says the British Embassy to the Holy See helped make the arrangements for this production. They say it's the first time Shakespeare has been performed in the Vatican.
You always have to remember that you're in a very uniquely privileged position, because, like you say, it is, it's more than once in a lifetime. Actually, it's once in eternity.
The production of Hamlet has been traveling the world for 2 years, marking the 450th anniversary of William Shakespeare's birth. It's already been performed in more than 170 countries. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. May God bless you.